Good morning to everyone. This is Sherry Evans from ERM Plus, and with me, support team member Deb Reed is with us, who helps me a lot with the employee records items. And so today we're going to be going over managing your work areas or your compensation data. I do want to let you know that we will be recording the webinar, and we'll send you the recording when done. And also, a little boo-boo on my part, I didn't realize that I did not have the documentation for managing the work areas done to send you in advance of the webinar, but I will be sending it to you today. I'm just about done getting that done, so my apologies for that. So you're going to get a document that looks like this, and it's going to tell you how to manage your work areas. I'm going to zoom this out a little bit for you so you can see it a little bit bigger. And in managing your work areas, you're going to get to see how to access the work area screen, and we're going to look over how to edit records. But before we even get into doing that, this is an area that has a lot of tables associated with it. So we're going to be taking a look at all of these tables that you have to do before you can really use the work areas correctly, because they very much affect what the work areas do. So just to show you to access the work areas, you're in Management Search, and I'm in our default little database here, our little test database. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my Management Search. Sorry, I was just checking the recording. And, of course, you can search by the employee type or by a name. And or you can just search any and get everybody. Whatever your types are going to be different than what we have set up on our system here. And you just go ahead and click search and find your folks. And then, as I've been doing, we'll use Mary Abbott as an example of a teacher. You just click the pencil and you go on down to the work area records. And that's going to allow you to maintain your work area or compensation data for each year, where the very first filter you'll see here is for work area. So you can tell by looking at these numbers, 2, 3, and 4, that those are different years. And you can tell by looking at the dates what year it is. So you can see work area 2 is 16, 17, 3, 17, 18. And, of course, your numbers are going to be different depending on when you started your system or how you have your numbering set up. And that's one of the tables that we're going to take a look at. So first things first, I am going to return here and go to the tables because I want to cover some tables with you. So System Manager, Lookup Tables. Let's start there. So we're going to go on into the employee tables first. These are tables that are unique to the employee record system. And we're going to take a look at the defaults. This definitely affects the work areas. Again, I'll be sending you a document that describes each of these defaults. Usually once they're set, you do not change them because they can really affect how things work. So I recommend that before you change some of these, like rounding FTEs and those kind of things, that you contact our support team. The fields at the top are fields that hide and display things in the employee search screens, but they're not as relevant to employee records. Really, they're fields that are more relevant to the job system, but they just do display here. You can choose to display or not display those particular items. Now, in the rounding area, this is important because whether you're in the work area or experience or credits, or again the work area for these last two, you're going to choose how you want these figures to round. So when you're in a work area and you put in a position like a secretary and they work X number of hours per day and days per year and their FTE comes out to like 0.625. Well, if I say 0.625, then, and that's the rounding I want, then I would set that individual item to 3 decimals. Normally districts will set these to whatever your fiscal system uses, so it depends on what that system is using. I see 5 used a lot. And you have a default for the rounding you want to happen on your individual record as well as the total of all of those records. And that default is true for the experience records, the credit records, and then in the work area where it calculates the annual hours for that work area record, or it calculates the hourly rate. How far do you want those figures to go out to? That's the question. And I'm hearing a little bit of background noise, so I'm just going to do a mute, and then you can unmute yourself if you want to, just so we don't catch that. Okay. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm thinking I had, okay, we're going to come down here. And next, what I'm going to do is talk to you about these defaults that are here at the bottom. So you would want to click this WAS schedule if your system uses the Washington salary schedule structure, where it's like BA plus so many credits, MA plus so many credits, etc. So all of our Washington districts now use that for certificated salary schedules. Here you'll select your year. What year is your default year? In the spring here, you'll probably change this to 2019, and we'll look at how to set that table up as well. And then you have your grandfathered trait. That is for the teacher salary schedule, where when using this, only people with this trait can get into the BA 135 column. Now I'm going to stop and make a note here. We have a couple of districts with the changes that have happened with salary schedules that have negotiated with their teachers union to allow people to get into the BA 135 column even though they're not grandfathered, which meant they had to have had those credits prior to 1/1 of 92. So for now, you'll need to give anybody that needs to get into there the trait of grandfathered in their personal record. But we will be adding a new default here that says use grandfathered, where if you want to stick with the default of using that grandfathered trait, you'll click it. Otherwise, it will allow anybody into the BA 135. So that's not there yet, but when it comes, we'll notify you and get that change made, since some of you have gone out and bargained that, and we didn't know you were going to do that ahead of time. Okay, then the next thing we have is just to identify for the system which of your employee types is your coach, so you can select that. Which trait is your coach trait. If you don't do coach records, you don't have to populate those. And then we just have a standard response email and response phones that can be used in reports. Okay, the next section is called Hide Credit Fields. This has to do with when you're entering credits. So we went over this in the Managing Credits webinar as well. So you can hide in the credit screen the course and enrollment ID associated with professional development if you wish to. You could hide course approval, but everybody in Washington uses that, and everybody in Washington has the course approval for a credit required. And then you have a verification title that's used in your verification of employment report. So you can change that anytime you want to. You can put a name in there and a title or whatever you want. Okay, two more areas of this default, and then I'll stop for question. If you're managing and maintaining assignments which have account codes, then we need to set up your account code structure, which was done for all of you. But as an example, I had a recent contact say, hey, we're changing our account code structure. We're going to add some more numbers here at the end. So if you're going to do that, you definitely want to contact the support team so that we can help you with that. And then once you have your structure set up, you'll identify where in this string of numbers, where the ampersand represents a number and the period is a separation, where in that string is the location. So I would count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It starts at the 11th number and it goes 3 digits long. So I go 11, 3. In the work area, when you enter an assignment, of course, the location is different for each assignment, but the system will look at this table and automatically drop the location code for that work area into that part of the account code for you. It's a really neat automatic little tool. But that's how it knows where the location code is in this string of characters. And, of course, your string could definitely look different than this. And then it's up to you to identify up to 5 other sections of your string. These are things that are commonly used in the state of Washington, and I know we have just Washington folks on today, so you can identify your program, your subprogram, your activity, object, etc. And again, you're just saying where in the string do those characters reside. So the program is at the first character, and it's 2 characters long. And then lastly, we have your interest or your employee types. Now, these are associated and connected to other systems. So if you have the job application system or the professional development system, you don't want to be going and changing these things without contacting us, because definitely has an impact on the other areas. You can't just add another one, etc. If you change a description here, it will change it across all systems. So just be really mindful of that. So you have your employee type, This field represents the type of experience that gets posted, which is 1 for certificated and 2 for classified, or 1 for calculated and 2 for non-calculated, and then just a description of that type. So I'm going to stop, and if you'd like to ask a question, you can unmute yourself, as we have now taken a look at one of the key tables associated with managing your work area data, and it's called the employee defaults. Any questions? Okay, super duper. I'm going to go ahead and go on to the next table I want to look at, and it's actually down in the shared lookup tables, and it's called your work area. So this is where you set up your work area from year to year. So you can see in my little system, I've had work areas back to 2015. You will have different things. But basically what you do is when you're ready to do your new year, and you can do that now, you can set up your 1920. You just go add new work area and then set it up. And if you're not sure what to put in, you can certainly look at what's already in another record. But you'll pick a year, work area that hasn't been used. So I had used 1 through 4, so I selected 5. Put in the 4 digits of the first part of the year. Put in your description, which is pulled and used in reports like contracts. So you could either just use that, or you can put school year or years, like whatever you want in there. And then you've got what's the start date of that year and the end date, which is usually the fiscal year. That's not really used for anything that calculates. It's just telling you that's the start of the year and the end of the year. The basic residual and tri-hours are all used by Vancouver for custom ProDev stuff, so you can ignore those. And then we have the cutoff for experience. So what is the date that experience will no longer count for the ensuing school year, for the 2019-20 year? And based on the current state rules, it's 8/31. And then the same with credits, and based on the current state rules, that is October 1. And then you just save your record, and that's your work area table. Okay, any questions on that? Okay, then I'm going to go to what I call the quad set of tables. Here we go. It's not gymnastics, but we have our own quad. Okay, the quad, which I used to call the Trinity because there were 3, but now there are really 4, is the calendar table, the salary schedule table, the positions table, and the assignment table. So in the calendar table, you're going to set up your calendars for every year, for every type of calendar you have. So every year, you've got to come in and create these calendars. And if you already know your 2019 calendars and you've set up your 2019 work area, you can start putting those in. And a good idea is to snapshot this information so you can filter, for example, to 2018, and then you can screenshot this so you would know exactly which calendars do I need to set up for the next year. And then you would know, well, in my case, I've got this many calendars I have to create. I have districts that have triple this amount, depending on how many you have. And then you would create, so you would add a new calendar for the next year. Now, unfortunately, you cannot copy a calendar from one year to the next because computers don't know the date. If Veterans Day was, Sunday the 11th this year, they don't know what date it is next year. So you have to always create your new calendars. Now, a good trick when creating calendars is to create like a 260-day one, and then you can copy that because you've got the dates for that year and make your new one if you had a 250-day or a 240. Or, for example, you could create a classified 180-day hour calendar, and then you could create from that a 185, a 190, a 195. So you at least have to establish 1 or 2 new calendars for the new year, and then you can go on and create your other calendars. Now, we will have webinars, and we will have instructions for you on creating calendars and all of these tables. They're fairly easy to do, but if you need any help, of course, you want to contact the support team. If you're ever not quite sure, you know what to do. You're going to create the Admin 260 calendar for next year. Click the pencil, screenshot that. So once it opens up, then you can just use your little screenshot tool, your snipping tool, or however you screenshot. I use the little snipping tool a lot. And I go New Snip, and then I get my little snip, and I've got that here that I can put on my other monitor so that when I set up next year, I'll know exactly what I had put in for last year. Now, one key note about calendars is that the number or calendar ID is automatically assigned by the system. It's just the next number. But this code number, the code like this admin 260 here, it has to be the same from year to year, because in the position table, we tell the position table that the code being used by this position, the calendar code, is admin 260, ADM 260. So that cannot change from year to year. When you create the 2019, when you create the 2020, the 2021, the 2022, the code for this calendar has to be whatever it was originally, ADM 260. You cannot change this code from year to year. You can change the title and the description and, of course, the start date and end date, what days of the week are used in this calendar, the default number of hours for that calendar, but you must use the same code from year to year because the position table uses that code, and it would mess it up if you change that. And then if you need to want to edit your dates, you just click on the dates here, and then you can use these colored buttons. So yellow would indicate a holiday, a paid holiday. Blue, if you click on that and you click an item, would be a non-work day. So you can just click blue, and it'll do that and color it for you. And you can unclick it to take it away. And then pink is another paid day. And then when you close this, or at any time you wish to, you will be able to click on the check button right here, this little link, which is going to recalculate the days, holidays, non-work, your total days, your average hours per day, and your total hours for you. So before you go doing work areas for another year, you need to make sure that this data is correct. Make sure that it actually, the dates are right and these totals are right for each calendar that you are creating. So I'm going to stop and see if you have any questions on calendar. Many of you are familiar with these, you've done them, but any questions? Okay, let's look at salary schedules. Salary schedules is quite similar to calendars. So all of you have salary schedules in, so you can view an existing one or you can add a new one. And when doing salary schedules from year to year, you will have to create, again, the ones that you used in the existing year. So I'm going to filter. So if I want to start working on setting up my next year, I have 14 salary schedules to create. Now, the awesome part of salary schedules is this. You can copy them, no problem. So if I want to create my HAP, which is my Hometown Association of Principals salary schedule for 2019, I just hit the copy button. This is really easy. It just goes slick, slick, slick. And, of course, I can filter for 2019 up here. And I'm going to say, oh, I don't have any. Well, that's because when you copy, the year goes to a blank or 0. So you can copy, you can look at here, I've done it twice in my little demo, so I'll delete one of them. So just click on the year and you'll see that it's sitting as 0. That means you copied one. So now if I wanted to, I could go copy another one, but at any point in time then I can come in and edit this, or if I were creating a new one, and then I'd put in my year, 2019. Your code, again, must be the same from year to year because the position table knows what code this is. So in this case, all of my principals and assistant principal positions that use this salary schedule in the position table are pointing to this particular code, this salary schedule. That's the one it uses. And then you'll set up the type of schedule. Now, in the documentation, we'll tell you what these are, but they have a lot to do with, is it a factored schedule or not? Anything that's factored has an F in it. Factored means you created a base amount, and then each step on the schedule has a factor, like 1.00, 1.02, 1.0345, And the step on the salary schedule, the amount for that step is calculated by multiplying the factor times the base. Now, the one that we're looking at is a very common one, row text, column text, amount. And that just simply means that in this row text, I put a header, level. In the column text, I put this, step. And then I have an amount. So I'm really only using 2 of these 4 headers or column descriptions. So if you were thinking of an Excel file, this would be the columns and the rows that you can have. And I'll look at just a moment at a teacher schedule and why it's a little different. Anyway, then you'll go salary code, basically your type of schedule. So is this for a certificated annual pay like teachers? Is it an hourly rate like classified? Is it a stipend position? You can select stipend. So this is just telling you what kind of a salary schedule it is. So this is the schedule type and then the kind of schedule, or what we call the code. Your description, if it's a factored schedule, enter your base. Then you'll use these 4 boxes to identify based on what you've set up here. And then you have notes, like some districts will keep a note. This was a 3% increase from over last year, blah, blah, whatever you want. And then we have check boxes to show the hourly rate. So if you have an annual salary and you want the hourly rate to show, you can click that. To round to dollar. So is this a round to dollar schedule or not? So you would click that if it is, click it if not if it's not. If it's an hourly rate, normally you don't round to dollar. P code. Okay, for every step on the salary schedule, it gets a P code or a placement code. And that's important because that's used throughout the system to indicate the step that the person is on. And I will show you that when we look at the detail. Now, only if you have an annual calendar, an annual salary schedule, where you want the system, when it's using annual salary amounts, to calculate the hourly rate, would you select a calendar? And then it will take that annual amount, look at this calendar, and calculate an hourly rate. Otherwise, for classified hourly rate, you already have that. So let's look at a couple of things here. Let's look at a teacher schedule. So I'm just going to go ahead and change this to 2018 so I can filter. And see, you thought you were going to look at work areas. Well, we are, but you've got lots of stuff to look at here. So on a teacher salary schedule, you see it's certificated annual, but the type has this factor in it. And most of yours are set up like this. We help you set these up when you get going. And in this case, we're using 3 of the headers, years, degrees, credits. We have a base because it's a factored schedule, and we've calculated it or hooked it to a calendar because we wanted to calculate an hourly rate for the step based on that whatever that annual amount is for that step divided by the annual hours on that calendar. Okay, and one more thing, let's then take a look at what some of these steps might look like. So for a teacher calendar, you have the steps, so you can modify these. You can just go in and modify any step you want to. You can just click, and if you've made a typo in the description or something, you can go ahead and put that in. When you create a schedule, it automatically assigns a P code, placement code, which is unique. You cannot have, within a year, all the P codes must be unique. So if this P code is used in this salary schedule, it can't be used in another schedule. And we have already made sure that all of yours are done. Now, I do want to explain this next P code field while I'm here. And to do that, I'm going to go ahead and open up a classified salary schedule, one that's not calculated. So for teacher salary schedules, we mass calculate their placement every year based on their degrees and their credits and those kind of things. But we don't for classified. They just move up a step. So in the old ERM system, and even last year, although we did that for you, when you rolled the year and someone needed to go from step 1 to step 2 or step 3 to step 4, whatever it is, you had to manually go into each person and move them up. No longer do you have to do that. So when I click for a record, I can go here and say, well, this is the P code for this step, level 3, A1. That's just my schema I have set up. The next P code, if they move down a step, would be 3A2. Now, this next year, when you do your new year, we have a utility tool that will move everybody on 3A1 to 3A2. And we'll do a webinar to show you that at the time. But what's really important about it is that you plan this out. Because if your salary schedule step, let's say, had 4 steps on it, 4 was the top. Well, you're not going to move the 4s. An A4 is going to stay at A4. But your A3s, you would need to move your A3s to A4 before you move your A2s to A3. So it's a backward sequence. A4 stays, A3 to 4, A2 to 3, A1 to 2, A0 to 1. So again, we'll do a webinar with you with creating the new year. But that's why we have this new field called Next P Code. So one of your homework assignments is to go into your classified salary schedules and see whether or not you have that information populated and or if it's correct. And so when you return to the screen, you can see it right here. P code, next P code, so that you can check that. And you can click here like on level, and it will filter that information for you or sort it so that you can see it a little bit better. So double check that your P codes are in so you can get ready for next year. P code, next P code. You don't want to change an existing P code unless you talk to us because there's data stored with that. But go ahead and put in your next P code. So you can see for A1, it's A2, A2 to A3, A3 to, and A3 because A3 is the top on my salary schedule. B1 to B2, B2 stays at B2 because that's the top on my schedule, and 1C is only that. Okay, that was a lot to learn about salary schedules, but again, what's cool about them is you can copy them, and you can also calculate them if you want to calculate that hourly rate, and of course you can delete one. So I will stop and see if you have questions about maintaining, creating, editing your salary schedules. Okay, I'll just make a note that when you're doing that, don't feel bashful at all about contacting support. It's something you do once a year, so it's not uncommon that you would want to say, before I do this and mess anything up, I think I'll contact support. We can do a webinar just with you, or we can do a webinar for a group or just help you over the phone, whatever it takes to help you with that. So, okay, I'm getting a little recycle button here that happens sometimes, especially when I'm in a webinar, and I don't know why it does that, but it is. But we're going to go on to the positions table next, so if you want to open that up, feel free to do that. While I'm waiting that and loading that information up, I've got a screenshot of one I can just bring over. I know that our tech people are working on something for me on the update. And when they do this, it makes us do that. So I'm just going to close this down, and I'll log back in just a second. I'm going to go ahead and bring over a position table. Now, what's important about the position table is this. When you open the position table, and before you do that, I just want you to understand that in the background in the position table, and I have this in the documentation coming to you, when you open it up, it'll look like this with little headers. But in the background, every position has a field called position use. So when you're in the job application system and you create or edit a position over there, they are stored with position use 1, and that's what the job application system uses, where you might post a position as teacher, science, math, teacher this, teacher that, secretary, blah, blah, blah. But when you hire them and in the employee records, you just want to call them teacher, or you just want to call it secretary or something different. And for that reason, when you edit position table here in this system, it is going to store those as position use 2, which is used both in employee records and the professional development system. So when you open it, you don't see that position 1 or 2 in the background, but you may hear our support team talk to you about that, and that's why I wanted to make a comment about that first. So I'm going to hopefully get the system back up here. Get myself back in. All right, here we go. Management, system manager, lookup tables, and I'm going to go open up that positions table. And then we're going to have all of this documentation in your resources here very shortly. And the documentation for managing credits and experience that we did last week is up and available in your system. So let's go to the positions table. Positions. So you'll see across the screen when this comes up that you'll be able to see the type. So you can filter these. If you just want to look at your classified, just go down and pick classified, and it'll just show you those positions. Your name, your unit. Reference check is used with the job application system. When you're doing a reference check for somebody in the final process, you identify what that is. The months, the hours per day, days per year, FTE, whether the position is inactive or not, copy it or trash it. When I create a new position, like I might have another attendant secretary too, I just hit this copy button. So you can just go copy, and I can create just like that. It'll open it up, and now I can put in my new name, but it's going to have all the other stuff there. So I can go attendance secretary 2, just like that. And then I can go on doing the other things, although most of it's already populated for me. So I will still go down and check everything. If you have a unique code from another system for this position, you could put that code in if you want to. Here you're going to indicate what does the system auto-calculate. And for all positions except for stipend positions, we calculate an FTE. So if this is a coach position, you would not click that. For positions that calculate the salary, where the salary is calculated based on criteria like credits, degrees, and experience, you would check this. So you don't do that for classified, but you would for certificated. And then some of you have us calculate a benefit FTE in your system, and if you do that, you can check that box. This would be if it's a certificated per diem position, not pretty rarely used. Your bargaining unit code, your directory group, if you want to set up a directory report, you can put this position into a directory group. You can create position groups, so if you want to have groups for positions, for reports, you can put this into the secretarial group. These groups are nothing more than other tables. Your federal AA group, so you'd want to be sure if you're doing your EEO reports out of here that you have that selected. If you have a local affirmative action group, you'd want to make sure you've selected what that is for that group. These are optional. And then the default hours per day and days per year are just a default, the most common use for that. So then maybe my attendance secretary is not 195, but is 210 days. So I could change that, and maybe they're 10 months, not 12. And then I could change this and point it to the classified 210-day calendar, which I don't have set up right now, but I would. So this is what is so important here, is that the position table identifies the calendar, and it uses that code, and the salary schedule, and it uses that code. So that's why that code has to be the same from year to year. Now we have a couple of you that calculate a vacation amount for classified positions. So when you select the base position like attendance secretary, it also calculates some other paid vacation days. So you would select the vacation schedule. Here's your reference check if you wanted to select that. Your credit area, is it certificated or other? And then if you ever make one inactive, you can do that, and otherwise you just save it. So the position table itself is fairly simple to do, but the key is to remember this position table does point to the schedule and vacation. So when you, the calendar and schedule. So when you enter a work area record, like attendance secretary 2, the work area is automatically look at the calendar and populate the start date, end date, work days, holidays, other days, total days. It'll populate the 8 hours a day, 210, 1 FTE. It'll populate all of that automatically. And then in the salary schedule, it would show you the steps in the PSE salary schedule for you to pick that. Or if it's a certificated, it automatically places it. And it does all of that just by setting up these few fields in the position table. So you do want to have a position for each position that you have in your system. And when you're done, just save it and come back. Any questions on the position table? Okay, then I'm going to go over to the last of the quad tables, which is in the shared lookup tables, and it's the assignment table. So in the work areas, you can optionally choose to maintain assignments. So if they're a teacher and you want to record their first grade, go ahead and do that. That will store in their permanent record. You can see that how you can edit one, or you can set it up. So you're going to put in the name of your assignment, and the type goes with your employee type. So 1 is 2, 2 is whatever, search specialist, whatever you have, so you select that. This is just a code, again, that you might use in some other systems, so it can be something like that, or it can be a first, or whatever you want that code to be. Level is just another code you can use for another system. And then your account code layout, where the location is always 000, because that's going to auto-populate, and I'll show you that when we do a work area. Then you have your grade codes here for your state reporting. You have your duty code for state reporting, your suffix code for state reporting, your program code for state reporting, and then your state characters. And that's it to the assignment table. So I'm ready to go on and show you the work area, but I wanted to make sure that if you have any questions on any of these tables, so while I'm getting over to the work area, please feel free to ask those. Or, of course, you can always email us later, no problem. Okay.
Sherry?
Yes, go ahead.
I don't have anything that populates in grade code, duty suffix, or state code. Where do I set that up?
That is an item code table. So is that Penny talking?
Yes.
Okay. Penny, I will shoot you an email and show you where that is, and I can set up the defaults. So in your assignment, you don't have the grade, the PHE, all of those codes?
No.
Okay, we can set those up. That's just an item code table. So let me head on back there for you real quick, because it's a good question. There are other tables. They're like short tables, and they're here in item types, employee only, and then you can filter for those. So we have, and then sometimes I have to find them. Grade code. Oh, I think, you know what, Penny? I think the grade codes are hard-coded in the system. So if you don't find them there, you can look under System. But I will explore that for you and get back to you and tell you exactly where it's at. But we do have other tables here in the item types, and I think it's in here somewhere. I just need to find it for you. Any other questions on tables? Thanks for noting that. Okay, let's go look at a work area, because the hard part about the work area is setting up the tables. And so you can start setting up your tables now for 2019-20. If you know your calendars, if you know your salary schedules, first do your work area table, and then go ahead and start doing those. All right, I'm just going to do a search on any here, and we'll look at a teacher first, and then we'll look at a classified, just because Mary Abbott's my first one, and she's a teacher. And most of you are familiar with these because you've now been maintaining them for quite a while. So in the work areas, when you open it, you're going to see the grid. Now, it's going to depend on how many years of data you're maintaining in terms of how much data you will see. But at the top, you'll continue to see all the tabs, the person's name. Here you'll see their name, their position and assignment if you're maintaining the assignment, and then some little instructions for you. The Add lets you add a record. Pencil lets you edit a record. The PDF icon, and I'm going to go ahead and click this now, will allow you to print a payroll authorization. And you're going to choose whether it's calculated, that would be like a certificated where the salary is calculated based on the salary schedule, credits, degrees, or uncalculated, classified. In this case, I'm using a teacher, and then you can pick the work area that you want and a reason code, which is an item type table called authorizations, and then you print your PAF. Now, when you print that PAF, what do you want to call it, a personnel authorization or a payroll authorization, it's going to bring up a report. Many of you have chosen to have this customized. So we provided your stock report when we converted ERM, but if you want it customized, you can put in a request to do that. You can see here's a district maintaining the account code and the full-on information. So when they send this to the employee or to payroll or it's in the file, it's showing the assignment codes, the SPI codes, the account codes, the dates, the full-on, all the detail for that record, for that person. This is their professional development pay. This is their teacher pay, their advisor pay, and then at the bottom it's got totals in it, total all FTE, total all pay, and a signature line. These can be customized. Most customized reports have a small fee associated with them, but we did not charge a fee for the initial setup of what you had coming over from ERM. So that's what a payroll authorization looks like. It's really handy to print these and put them in the personnel file once a year. You go back and edit a record, a personnel record 5 years from now, and you see this report, you know exactly what they worked and got paid for that year. So very handy reports. And then you can push this data out to Excel if you want to. Just export to Excel, and it'll open up Excel with this data. Do whatever you want with it. Okay, so sometimes when you're working in here, it's nice to filter to the current year. So I'm going to put 4 in here just so I can see just my current year. And across the screen, I can see start, end, location, my contract type, that P code, months, work, holidays, other days, hours per day, salary, FTE, the prime position. Now, only one record should be marked prime if you're using prime position, because what that does when you click that prime is it updates the information on the personal tab to show that that's their position and their location and their base hours and their base FTE. So it's up to you whether you use prime or not, but if you're using it, it should only be one position marked as prime, and then that will update the other records. And you have a copy and a trash can and a filter if I've filtered to work area 4, so I can unfilter. You can also click on any header, and it will sort them by whatever that column is. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and add a new work area line just to show you. So let's suppose this was a brand new teacher. And I'm going to bring this up because when you come in here, the first thing you'll do is pick the year. And when you pick that year, you should see a placement for a certificated person on a certificated schedule. If you do not see that, if you see no placement, that's okay for classified. That means that you haven't calculated their placement in the credits or experience. So you need to go back and make sure that your degree is verified, your credits are in, your experience is in as much as you have, and then calculate over on one of those screens, because that's what creates this placement. And as soon as I've selected the year, it shows the placement, which is going to be used to populate this data. So now I'm going to go ahead and pick the position, teacher, and I just had to type TE and it came to me. And it put in the unit, the months, this is all from that position table. Then it went to the calendar and got the start date, the end date. There's the calendar it's using, it's telling you. It put in the default hours per day, paid days, holidays, other days, total days, hours, the salary schedule, the hourly rate, and the amount, because it already knows all that. And I didn't have to type a thing. All of this is put in. So what I need to do is put in this person's location, so I can pick that, and put in their contract type, whatever it might be. And you can type into this provisional, it'll come to you. Incremental filtering, that's called. If this was the prime position, I would check that. I can make some comments if I'd like to, and then I can save the record. Now, even when I'm entering, if this person was a late hire, say that they just started today, I can use this calendar, or I can type in and put November today's date, and then I can save this. Well, I picked the 7th, but that's okay. I'm going to save that record. Now, when you save it once, it will update the days. So you'll see that it went to 134 days. But it doesn't also update the salary. It's kind of which came first, the chicken or egg. So just click Save again, and voila, you will see the salary change. So you can just change the start date or the end date, and then maybe I go down here and put late hire, started 11/7. And if I wanted to put whatever else, I could, note you can put that in there, whatever it is. And then again, if they leave early, you can just change the close date and do that. So I'm just going to say that's what it is and save it. Now, if you're maintaining assignments, you can just click the assignment here and add the assignment, whatever it might be. So I'm just going to pick one, first grade, and it's going to populate the account code with that 000. Her FTE, everything is there. I can indicate that this is the prime assignment. I can also, if this was a split it. If you want to track the period they teach, you can do that. The number of students that are in that class, you can do that. And then this is important. If you want to indicate that this person has an endorsement that's appropriate for this assignment on their teaching certificate, you could check that. And that's your way of knowing, hey, I checked that endorsement. They're okay to teach that class, and save it. Voila, I'm done. I can close that, and now I can return. and I will have 2 teacher records on this person that I just been monkeying with. But you can see how simple it is to add a position. So now I've got teacher and teacher, and here's this 11-7 one. And I can click the plus. So I can add an assignment from here. So maybe I goofed and only part of hers, or I put in the wrong one. I can edit this here and change this to another one and save it. And or I can delete this record. So I'm just going to show you a few other ones. Let's go ahead and do another, well, I'll just show you this basketball one. Now this is a stipend position. So with the stipend position and with classified, when you add the position, it's going to show you the possible salary schedule amounts here. And then you'll come in and pick whatever that is and save it. Because it doesn't know, it doesn't have any information to know where to start them at. But when we roll this next year, it will know to take this P code and move them up to the next P code to move them up a step. So let's go take a look at a classified, and then I'll stop and see if you have questions about maintaining this work area data, as we're just about done. So let's look at Sally Elmore here, and she's a secretary. So I'm going to go ahead and add a new work area line just so you can see what it does when you add one and how it uses that position table. It's so important. Okay, so I'm going to pick 2018, and I'm going to come in here and pick my attendance secretary, maybe, and then I'll put that in there. And it's going to populate start date, end date, calendar, unit, months, all of the days. But it doesn't do the salary because it doesn't know where she's starting. So again, I'll just pick my location and my contract type, whatever it is. Those are tables that you set up. And then you have whatever she's starting at. We'll put that in, and if it's the prime, save it, and then save it. You can put notes in if you want to. And it's going to go ahead and calculate the rate, and you've got it. And then if you want, again, just like the other one, you can click Assignment and add the assignment, Attendance Secretary, and it'll populate it, and you can save it. And then after you do that, it didn't show you that on the other one, it drops the account code. So the location code for Briar Glen is 101, so it dropped it right into the right spot in that account code, all because we did the tables. So the position table, which is hooked to the salary schedule table, which is hooked to the calendar table, all of that populates because we did those tables correctly. The assignment table, this all populates and it puts the location in the right amount because in default, we told it where the location is and what our account code string looks like. When I'm rounding the annual hours or the salary amount or the FTE, it's doing that correctly because of the defaults that we set up. And that's why I spent so much time with you going over the tables, because actually creating work areas and editing them is a pretty easy task. And you just continue to do that, and it's up to you what work records you keep in here. We have many districts maintaining lots of records for like teachers and all their extra pay stuff and their advisors and their stipends. The nice thing about doing it here, because it's so quick to do, is that it can be stored in your experience records, and forever you're going to have these records to look at. So it's very helpful information. Okay, I'm going to stop and say, what questions do you have? What did I miss? What did I go over too quickly? Or what can I help you with? So let's just open it for questions. And if you don't have any, we appreciate you being on board today. And we'd love to have you back on other webinars, so don't forget to sign up for those or let us know. So if you don't have questions, feel free to log off, but it's now open question time. I'm going to stay on. I don't have any questions. I have a lot of people logging off, so have a great day.
Hey, just real quick, thanks for this. It's a crazy amount of information, and I love these, so thank you.
It is, and we'll send you the information, the handouts and stuff, and the recording to this webinar, Chris, since it's new for you. There's a lot there, so don't you be bashful about asking us for help.
Absolutely. Thank you.
You betcha.